talk about scientists creating monster insects. Stay with us. Hello, friends. Welcome to Advanced Studio Classroom. My name is Steve. Thanks for joining us today. Today we will be talking about mosquitoes, more specifically, mosquitoes that have been genetically altered. I'll be your host for these 2 days for this month's science feature. And helping me along in the studio, we have Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Steve. It's always great to be here. And this topic is quite interesting about mosquitoes. Do you know that mosquitoes are the one type of animal that I absolutely detest?
I did not know that.
Yes.
But I think you're in good company. I think there are a lot of people out there who would agree with you. In fact, just last night, speaking of mosquitoes, you know, they disturb our sleep, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest reasons we hate them, or I hate them. Man, and I got a big mosquito bite on my leg last night. And how long does it take for that pain to go away? You know, it's like 20 minutes. You're just sitting in bed, just waiting for that itchy thing, this feeling to stop before you can go back to sleep. I hated that thing. And
right, yeah, that's just one of the reasons why, yeah, mosquitoes are detestable. They wake you up at night, but then just like the bites in general. And I don't know, for some reason, they love biting me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, probably because you have sweet blood. Right?
I don't know about that, but if there's a mosquito around, I will get bitten.
Oh, good. Well, I'll keep that in mind. Next time I'm outdoors, I'll invite you over so they can feast on you. And Albert, welcome.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. This sounds like science fiction, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
It does. Do you hate mosquitoes as much as Linda?
No, not actually. There are times when I film outdoors with Linda for studio classroom, and I'm okay with it because
I always get bitten.
Yeah, they just like congregate around her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great though. That's great, except for you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, we see in the title Frankenfly, and we need to explain this for a moment. Why would the author call something Frankenfly? Linda?
Well, you've probably heard of the story Frankenstein, or the character Frankenstein, and that was a man that was created or altered to become this monster.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. I think usually people think of Frankenstein as the monster, but actually Frankenstein is the scientist/doctor that created the monster.
Yeah, I think that's a common misperception, but still I think when we talk about in pop culture Frankenstein, it's the monster that comes to mind immediately, right? But technically you're right, Albert, but Frankenstein can also refer to the monster. So tell us more about this story, Linda.
Well, these Frankenflies, because they've been modified, they're like super mosquitoes. They're not like regular mosquitoes. So they have something special about them, which we're going to talk about later in the article.
You might have heard of this prefix Franken in other areas of the news. I think of Frankenfood. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not. What is this?
That means it's food that's genetically modified, so that scientists are modifying strains of wheat or rice, and it's called Frankenfood, and people are against it because of its modification. They're saying it's not organic, it's not natural, it's not healthy. And so there's a big push against genetically modified foods. And some people call them Frankenfoods.
Right. You definitely use that term if you were against genetically modified food, because the term Franken or Frankenstein, that, you know, it has a very negative connotation.
That's right.
Yeah, because it brings to mind of how, in the story at least, you know, the monster got out of control and it's potentially dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great movie, by the way. An old movie, but if you have a chance and you haven't seen it yet, go check out Frankenstein. Really fun movie to watch. Okay, well, let's talk about the deck for a second. Despite a serious virus threat, Plans to test the lab-grown insect remain in limbo. So first, let's talk about a virus. Albert, what is a virus? Can you help us with that?
A virus is like a bacteria. It's germs. It's a disease that invade our cells.
Yeah, very microscopic organism that causes sickness, disease, and perhaps even death. So it's a very, very serious thing. And we have the mosquitoes carrying this virus, right? And so we want to look for ways to defeat these mosquitoes. And so some scientists are planning to do something about it. We'll read about that in a moment. But first, let's talk about this word limbo. What is limbo?
Is it that dance where you try to squeeze yourself under a pole by leaning backwards?
Not that limbo.
Ooh.
But good try, Albert. Albert's a big dancer, by the way. Linda, what is limbo?
Well, when you're in limbo, you're like in between two places. Like you're not in one or the other. Like you're kind of stuck.
Right, right. Traditionally, limbo comes from, I think, the Catholic Church theology where after you die, if you still have some sins that are connected with you, you don't go immediately to heaven. You go to limbo, and in limbo you pay for those sins somehow, and then after you get cleansed from them, then you can go to heaven. So you're kind of between heaven and hell, you might say. You're in limbo, you're in the middle. So that's exactly right.
Right, and so now in common speech we usually refer to it as like a gray area, like an uncertain period of waiting, decision, or resolution.
That's right. Excellent. Okay. Friends, we are ready now to get into our reading. So let's do that. Please open your magazines to page 32, and let's get started reading Frankenfly Mosquitoes.
Frankenfly mosquitoes. Despite a serious virus threat, plans to test the lab-grown insect remain in limbo. At the epicenter of the Zika outbreak in Latin America, Brazil and World Health officials have embraced a lab-engineered Frankenfly as a potential weapon to control a frightening virus suspected of causing horrific birth defects in newborns. But 6 years after a pioneering test run in Florida was first proposed, a plan to deploy the genetically modified bugs in the U.S. remains on indeterminate hold. A Florida lab built to produce designer males that breed non-viable offspring remains shuttered while the U.S. Food and Drug Administration continues to mull over potential environmental impacts. But in Brazil, where between 500,000 and 1.5 million people are believed to have been infected in the last year, officials have decided they can't afford to wait. The Aedes aegypti mosquito, which carries the virus, thrives in urban tropical settings, like Brazil's many favelas. Unlike Florida's native marsh mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti evolved to be attracted to human odor.
Okay, if you have been keeping up with the news in the last, 6 months, maybe to a year, you are familiar with the word Zika. And it's what is it actually, Albert? What is Zika?
Well, Zika is a virus, so it's a little microscopic agent infecting cells. It's transmitted through mosquitoes, a certain type of mosquitoes, as we heard in the reading. It's carrying this virus, and it thrives in urban tropical settings, and it usually and mainly affects women who are pregnant.
Okay, all right, thanks. Yeah, we often talk about or try to guess what is the world's deadliest animal.
Oh.
You ever talk about that? When people always think about
Sharks.
Snakes, things like that. But actually, it's the mosquito, right?
Yeah.
Because the mosquito does carry all of these illnesses, these viruses and sicknesses, and they are responsible for a lot of illness and death. Well, at the epicenter, let's talk about this word quickly. What is the epicenter, Linda?
Well, you see the word center in there, so it's the main focus or the main point, or where this outbreak is taking place.
Okay.
And it happens to be in Latin America.
Usually we use the word epicenter when we're talking about earthquakes, but here we can use it in other places, such as sickness, and it happens to be in Latin America, as you said, Brazil. And it's a problem. It's a big problem, and it's spreading. And World Health officials have embraced a lab-engineered Frankenfly as the solution to controlling this frightening virus. And so, again, we're talking about making that connection between Frankenstein, the doctor's monster, and creating this new kind of breed of mosquito to fight the virus. Albert, take us into the next sentence, please, on line 6.
Yeah, so they have been trying to get this passed in Florida after like 6 years to deploy it, and it remains on indeterminate hold.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people are skeptical about this. Will this work? Will this cause more problems or a different kind of problem in the future that we don't foresee? Help us with indeterminate, Linda. What does that mean?
Well, that just means unmeasured or uncounted, something that might be difficult to determine or count.
Okay, so we see in the U.S. state of Florida, they're concerned about this because, as I said earlier, this virus, Zika, is spreading and it's moving north.
Right. It's been a big concern for World Health officials, especially leading up to the Olympics, which took place earlier this month, because the Olympics took place in Rio, Brazil.
Right.
And that's one of the places where Zika was very prominent, or there were a lot of cases.
Right, right. Okay, next paragraph. The Florida lab built to produce designer males that breed non-viable offspring. Okay, friends, we're going to be talking a lot about scientific terms, biological terms. A designer male. That's tough. What is a designer male, Albert?
So, in mosquitoes, there are females and males. And what happens is the scientists are using the males of the species. And what they're going to do is they're going to design it in a sense. They're going to, genetically modify, like we talked about. It's like taking it apart like a Frankenstein monster and putting it back together and making sure that they create a mosquito that produces non-viable offsprings. Non-viable is potentially something that doesn't work. It's not an option. And offspring is usually the young of an animal.
Right. Very good. Thank you. So, yeah, viable, again, means working or physically fit to live. And non-viable means it's not going to work out. Whatever we're talking about will not live very long. So we're talking about offspring.
Right. So in this case, they're organisms, so they're not going to be able to survive, basically.
Right. And they remain shuttered. These labs remain shuttered, meaning closed. Okay. That's another way to say it. While the U.S. Food and Drug Administration continues to mull over potential environmental impacts. Okay, so they're still thinking it over. They're mulling it over. They're thinking carefully about it. Maybe there's an environmental issue we haven't seen. We got to think about this and make sure all of our ducks are in a row before we put on the green light for this.
The quack.
Right.
Yeah.
And, this is a major concern because whenever you modify something, just like with the genetically modified food, there's potential for unknown consequences for people who eat that food. And so here you're creating an organism that is not naturally made. It's a lab-produced organism, and it could have the potential for dangerous outcomes.
Right. These are the things that horror movies are made out of, right? We watch horror movies about things that are created in laboratories and they get out and they create all kinds of havoc. And so that could happen. We don't know. In Brazil, where between 500,000 and 1.5 million people are believed to have been infected, officials have decided they can't afford to wait. So in Brazil, they're going to go through with this and they're going to push this through. They're saying too many people are sick because of Zika. We can't wait anymore. All right, I'm going to challenge Albert now on line 16, bringing us into this mosquito. What is the name of the mosquito exactly, Albert?
We were talking about this during the break. I believe we decided to go with Aedes aegypti.
Yeah, or Aegypti.
Aegypti.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a Latin word, right, Linda?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the species name, and in biology, whenever we, all the names of species, it's derived from Latin. They use Latin names. So Latin actually isn't a spoken language anymore, but it's still very important because that's what English is based off of, and many other languages like Spanish, Italian. So it's still quite important, but people don't speak Latin.
Most people don't. I think there are a few who still do.
And study it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's still people who study it, but it's...
Remember when the Pope, the latest Pope was installed, because people speak Latin in the Vatican.
True.
Yeah, but they're very, very few, very few. I'm wishing that we had one of those people here today to help us with this pronunciation.
Or the Pope himself.
Yeah. Well, this mosquito carries the virus and it thrives in urban tropical settings. Mostly when I think about tropical diseases, it's in the jungles, right? It's in all the marshy swamplands. But this particular mosquito thrives. It just loves and lives off of the urban tropical setting. So this is a big problem because, of course, this is where all the people are living, in urban areas, especially in Brazil's many favela, which are the ghettos. A lot of people packed in tightly, not a lot of sanitation or running water to keep things clean. And so the mosquitoes are just thriving in these environments.
Right. And in this very concentrated area, it's easy for the virus to spread because you have so many people located in this.
And the mosquitoes are particularly attracted to human odor. So again, when there's not a lot of water and sanitation is not a priority, these mosquitoes are attracted to humans and the way humans smell. And so these places are just ripe for infection and sickness.
Exactly.
Well, friends, let's move on to the next reading at the top of page 33. We'll talk about a possible solution.
A possible solution. Increasingly, government officials are looking toward what some have dubbed Frankenflies for help. In February, the World Health Organization said fogging, followed by the controlled release of genetically modified mosquitoes, is worth considering. Florida, where 21 travel-related cases of Zika had been confirmed last winter, has long been at war with the Aedes aegypti, mostly controlling the diseases it spreads. Which is what brought Oxitec, a British biotech company, to Florida, where battling mosquitoes have earned the district a reputation for cutting-edge techniques.
All right, friends, welcome back. If you're just joining us, Linda, Albert, and Steve. I am Steve. We're here talking about Frankenflies in this month's science feature. We're on page 33 in our Advanced Studio Classroom magazine, and we're talking about maybe a possible solution to this problem of the Zika outbreak in Latin America, and it seems to be moving around, and it's potentially going to reach the U.S. if it hasn't already. And so, Albert, take us into this new paragraph at the top of page 33.
Right. So, I feel like social pressure and also, government they have a responsibility. The officials are looking towards the Frankenfly What we mentioned earlier, how it's a genetically modified mosquito. They dubbed it Frankenfly. The word dub comes from a French word which means to put on an armor. But usually nowadays in just, colloquial terms, we just say to name or nickname.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And even the WHO is getting in on this, and they said fogging, followed by the controlled release of genetically modified mosquitoes, is worth considering. So they're saying, yeah, it might work, but let's still do some fogging. And there's a picture of a guy doing some fogging at the bottom of page 33. See that fog or smoke coming out of his machine. Fogging, it means to spray or disperse very fine droplets of poison and water into the air to kill mosquitoes. The problem is when you fog something or you fog an area, you are putting this poison into the air that doesn't just affect mosquitoes. It could affect other living things too that you don't want to die.
Right.
So that's not really the best option. So people are looking for other options than fogging. All right. Line 7, Linda, what's going on here?
Well, actually, in Florida, in the U.S., there already have been some confirmed cases of Zika. And, so it's very important that we try to control the situation before it spreads more.
All right. So maybe people traveling back and forth to South America or Central America, and they're picking up this virus, and now we're finding it in Florida. So as we said or saw earlier, government officials in Florida now are concerned about Zika as well.
Right. And Florida is actually my home state. And I know firsthand that there are a lot of mosquitoes there.
And they love you.
Yes, they do.
And they sent you a birthday card.
I feel like they miss you as well.
Because they love your blood. Okay. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. And Linda has a deep hatred for mosquitoes.
Yeah. This is just another reason to hate mosquitoes, that they spread infectious diseases.
Well, Oxitec, a British biotech company, went to Florida and they were starting to battle mosquitoes, and they've earned the district a reputation for cutting-edge techniques. Wow. So there's some money to be made here, right? Like some biotech companies are coming in and saying, we'll save the day. Count on us, hire us, and we'll take care of your problem.
Yeah, they're going to bring cutting-edge techniques, and I hope our advanced listeners remember this vocabulary focus word that we defined a few months ago. But as a reminder, it means something that's on the latest edge, on the verge of technology-wise.
That's right.
It's a leading edge, and before that, it just meant the sharpness of a blade or a tool.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're into cutting-edge techniques. Fogging is an old technique. That's not cutting edge.
Old world technology.
Yeah, that's old school. We've got something better than that, and Oxitec will bring that to Florida. Let's find out what that is now in our next reading, How It Works.
How it works. Pitched as a safer, more affordable way of battling Aedes aegypti, Oxitec's engineered mosquitoes work by releasing males designed to produce offspring with a kill switch, or defective gene that kills them. The offspring also bear a fluorescent marker gene, so their larvae can be identified when inspectors conduct mosquito counts. That allows mosquito control districts to gauge the progress of the program.
All right, Oxitec has created these engineered mosquitoes. They're the company behind these Frankenflies, and they work by releasing males designed to produce offspring with a kill switch or a defective gene that kills them. So there's no fogging involved, but there will be a kill switch. A kill switch is something that you see on some electronic gadgets. you flip that switch and all the power going to that gadget just gets shut off. It's like the gadget is died, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it brings to mind when I was a kid, there was this great movie called Broken Arrow where it's a rocket, or a missile actually, which is a type of rocket, and it has a kill switch. So even though they fired it in midair, they can kill it off and
Right.
it won't explode.
Right.
So, I mean, technically, these mosquitoes have a built-in genetic kill switch.
Right. So if something goes wrong in the rocket or the gadget, you can disable it. And the offspring also have a fluorescent marker gene, which is very helpful. Why is that, Linda?
Well, yeah, something that is fluorescent is very bright and it can be seen in the dark. So this defective gene that they have can be identified by the scientists, the inspectors, to know the progress of the program.
Right.
So if these genetically modified male mosquitoes are producing and they're creating these offspring that will die, then it shows that their program is working.
Yeah, I would hate to be an inspector and have that job of gauging the progress of the program by counting, going around some neighborhood and 1, 2, 3.
I think maybe use a little bit more sophisticated methods.
No, I kind of like that. Simple is
Maybe,
good.
Probably. You're right.
No, I think Linda's right. You probably use a net and collect sample size, but
Yeah. My, okay.
approach.
Well, friends,
That would be your way, Steve.
let's stop here for today. There's a very, very informative sidebar on the right side of page 33. If you have time, please check that out and learn more about the Zika outbreak and how it's linked to birth defects. Tomorrow, we'll talk more about this and what we're doing to try to battle the Zika outbreak with Frankenfly mosquitoes. Until then, I'm Steve, and for all of us here at Advanced, have a great day.